They said everything's bigger in Texas. And for a long time, that was a good thing. Bigger land, bigger dreams, bigger opportunities. But today, bigger is starting to mean something else. Bigger traffic, bigger crowds, and bigger problems. In the past decade, Texas has become the epicenter of America's migration wave. Millions of people have packed up their lives and headed south, from California, New York, Illinois, and beyond. They came chasing the promise of lower taxes, cheaper homes, and more freedom. Texas became the dream escape from the chaos of the coasts. Cities like Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio exploded almost overnight. What used to be wide-open land is now endless suburbs, highways stretching for miles, new housing developments rising out of the dust, cranes dotting every skyline. For years, it felt unstoppable. But now, that boom is starting to feel like a warning. Because Texas isn't just growing, it's overheating. The numbers are staggering. Between 2010 and 2024, more than 6 million new residents arrived in the Lone Star State, one of the fastest population booms in modern U.S. history. Austin alone has nearly doubled in size. Dallas-Fort Worth now adds 1,000 new residents every single day. At first, it was celebrated. Politicians called it the Texas miracle. Jobs were plentiful, homes were affordable, and companies like Tesla, Oracle, and SpaceX moved their headquarters here. It was the ultimate comeback story, a state rising as others fell. But behind that success, pressure was building, because no system can grow this fast without breaking something. And in Texas, everything's being pushed to the limit. Housing, energy, water, and roads. The dream of endless land and cheap living is vanishing before people's eyes. A home that once cost $250,000 now goes for $500,000. Rent prices have doubled in Austin and Dallas. Even small towns are feeling the pressure, as new arrivals outbid locals for every available property. Texans used to joke that everyone's moving here. Now no one's laughing. The roads tell the story. Traffic in Austin has become legendary. Gridlock that stretches for hours. Highways that look more like parking lots. Dallas and Houston aren't far behind. Texas was built for cars, not crowds. And now, the state's sprawling cities can keep up with the sheer number of people trying to live the same dream. And it's not just the roads, it's the power. The Texas power grid, once a point of pride, is struggling under record demand. Every summer when heat waves hit 110 degrees, millions crank up their air conditioners, and the system groans under the strain. In 2021, a historic winter freeze left over 10 million Texans without power. Hundreds died, and it exposed a truth few wanted to face. Texas built for growth, not resilience. It's a state that believes in independence, but independence comes at a cost. Texas runs its own power grid, separate from the rest of the country. That used to be a badge of honor. Now it's a vulnerability, because when millions more people arrive, the old system can't handle the weight. The demand for water, housing, and electricity is exploding faster than the infrastructure can expand. And every year another line gets crossed. The Texas boom was supposed to be a success story, a model for the future of America. But now the same forces that built it are threatening to tear it apart. The question isn't whether Texas will keep growing. It's whether Texas can survive its own growth. Because the dream that drew millions here might soon become the reason they leave. The first signs of collapse don't begin with explosions or headlines. They begin quietly, with long commutes, crowded schools, and a strange feeling that something is slipping out of balance. Texas, once a symbol of boundless opportunity, is now a state under silent siege. The cities that once promised freedom and open space are choking under their own success. It starts in Austin, the city that became the heart of the Texas boom. Not long ago, Austin was a small, creative haven, a city of music, art, and wide skies. Today, it's one of the fastest-growing urban centers in America, and one of the most expensive. Locals used to call it weird, a word that meant independent and full of soul. But the Austin of today is different. The skyline is taller, the streets are fuller, and the people who made it unique are slowly being pushed away. Houses that once sold for $200,000 now reach $600,000 or more. Rents have doubled. sometimes tripled. The dream of owning a home here, once the promise of Texas, is slipping beyond reach for the very people who built the city. In neighborhoods that were once filled with families and musicians, luxury apartments now tower over empty lots. Cranes fill the horizon, but every new building seems built for someone else, someone richer, newer, from somewhere far away. Traffic tells the story of what's happening. Highways like I-35 and Mopac were never meant for this many cars, this many lives rushing in the same direction. A drive that once took 20 minutes can now take 2 hours. Everywhere you look, lines of cars, of people, of frustration. It's not just a city growing, it's a system straining. And the heat, it never lets up. Each year brings longer summers, higher temperatures, more days above 100 degrees. Air conditioners hum endlessly, pushing the fragile Texas power grid to its edge. The grid wasn't designed for this, not for so many people, not for so much demand. And every time the lights flicker, Texans remember the winter of 2021, when the power failed and the cold became deadly. Now, it's the heat that threatens to do the same. The crisis isn't limited to Austin. Dallas sprawls endlessly to the north, consuming farmland and small towns as its edges expand. Everywhere, new housing developments rise, wood frames stretching toward the horizon. But infrastructure lags behind. Roads, schools, and hospitals weren't built for this scale of population growth. And beneath the surface, another problem brews: water. Texas has always been dry, but now the reservoirs that feed its cities are dropping faster than they can refill. The Colorado River, which runs through Austin, has seen record low flows in recent summers. Cities are beginning to impose restrictions. Some neighborhoods already face warnings about usage limits. And yet, construction continues, faster than ever. Houston, once the oil capital of the world, faces a different struggle: the wrath of nature. Hurricanes have become stronger, floods more frequent. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey submerged entire neighborhoods underwater for weeks. Billions were spent rebuilding, but every year brings a new threat, another storm forming in the Gulf. Even as the city expands, the land beneath it sinks, slowly, steadily, pulled down by overdrawn groundwater. It's as if nature itself is reminding Texas that growth comes with a price. The state's great cities are thriving on the surface, booming economies, shiny skylines, new jobs. But underneath, the systems that keep them alive, power, water, roads, are reaching their limits. And the stress is showing. Teachers describe classrooms overflowing with students. Emergency rooms report hours-long waits. Even basic city services, trash collection, public transport, zoning, are falling behind demand. The machinery of growth has outpaced the people meant to maintain it. For decades, Texas was celebrated for doing things differently. Low taxes, limited government, minimal regulation. It worked, for a while. But now those same principles are being tested by a population larger than some countries. Because when growth is constant and control is minimal, systems bend, and sometimes break. In the suburbs of Dallas, residents wait months for new power connections. In Austin, families line up for food assistance as costs rise faster than wages. And across the state, local governments struggle to balance budgets while keeping up with the endless expansion. The promise that drew millions, freedom, opportunity, cheap living, still exists, but it's changing. For many, that dream has become harder to find, hidden behind traffic jams, high prices, and blackouts. Every boom carries within it the seed of its own undoing. And Texas, once the land of limitless space, now finds itself trapped, not by its enemies, but by its own success. In the still heat of the evening, as headlights crawl down crowded highways, you can almost feel it, a pressure building beneath the surface. A state that's growing too fast, stretching too thin, and waiting for something to give. The people came chasing a dream. Now they're wondering how long it can last. Texas has always defined itself by power. Not just the power of oil or money or politics, but the power to stand alone. It is a state that built its own grid, its own identity, its own destiny. But today that independence has become both its pride and its greatest weakness. The Texas power grid is a symbol of freedom, of self-reliance, of control. But behind the myth lies a fragile truth. The grid was never meant for this many people, this much demand, this much heat. It was designed for a Texas that no longer exists. Every summer, when the sun burns across the plains and temperatures climb above 110 degrees, the grid begins to tremble. Air conditioners hum across millions of homes. Factories, data centers, and electric vehicles all draw from the same fragile system. And every year the warnings come. Please conserve energy. The state pleads with its people to turn off their lights, raise the thermostat, and hope the system holds. But hope is not a strategy. In February 2021, that illusion shattered. A rare winter storm swept across Texas, dropping temperatures to record lows. Pipelines froze, power plants failed, and the independent grid, unconnected to the rest of the United States, began to collapse. For days, millions sat in the dark, their homes turning into freezers. At least 700 people died from cold, carbon monoxide, or fires started in desperation. The images shocked the world, a state known for energy, paralyzed by the lack of it. And yet, the lessons learned that winter seemed to be fading as fast as the snow that caused it. Today, the pressure on the grid is even worse. More people have arrived. More devices need power. More heat waves strike each year. The demand for electricity grows faster than the state can build new capacity, and the old promise of independence, of Texas energy for Texans, now feels like a ticking time bomb. Because when a system runs this close to failure, it only takes one spark to bring it down. The energy crisis doesn't end with the grid. It stretches into water, into industry, into every part of daily life. Rivers run low, forcing power plants to reduce output. Reservoirs shrink, leaving cities to fight over what's left. In West Texas, entire towns depend on trucked-in water just to survive the summer. The balance between heat and power, the most basic equation of modern civilization, is starting to crack. The Texas landscape, once a place of freedom, now feels like a furnace. In cities like Houston and Austin, asphalt and glass trap the heat, pushing nighttime temperatures higher than ever before. Some nights, it never cools below 90 degrees. The air itself feels heavy, suffocating. Scientists call it the urban heat island effect. Residents call it unbearable. The power grid calls it disaster, because every degree hotter means millions more air conditioners switching on, more energy pulled from the fragile system, and more chance of collapse. And when the grid finally fails, not if, but when, the consequences will be worse than before. Because this time, it won't be a rare freeze. It will be a relentless heat wave, one that doesn't end for weeks. Texas is rich in energy resources: oil, natural gas, wind, solar. No state produces more. But the irony is painful. The place that fuels the world can't always power itself. Part of the problem lies in the way the system was built: fragmented, independent, and profit-driven. The state's energy market rewards cheap power, not reliable power. And so, for years, companies avoided investing in backups, choosing short-term profit over long-term safety. The result is a grid stretched thin, efficient on paper, fragile in practice. And yet, the demand keeps rising. Tech companies build data centers that consume the power of small cities. New residents plug in electric cars, smart homes, and everything that defines modern life. The future is digital, and digital runs on electricity. But electricity in Texas is no longer guaranteed. This is where the boom meets the breaking point. A system designed for independence now faces collapse under the weight of its own people. And as the climate grows hotter, the danger grows closer. Because every blackout chips away at the illusion of control. Every heat wave exposes the limits of freedom. And every day that passes without reform brings the state one step closer to a crisis that could define a generation. When the lights go out again, and they will, it won't just be an energy failure. It will be a symbol. A moment when Texas, the giant of the American South, finally confronts the cost of its own ambition. And as the darkness spreads across the glowing cities, one question will echo through the silence: how much longer can Texas stand alone? The Texas dream was always about freedom, space, independence, and opportunity. But freedom without balance turns into chaos. The same independence that kept Texas strong now isolates it. Its power grid, its water systems, its infrastructure, all operate mostly alone. That worked when the population was 20 million. But with 32 million and counting, isolation has become risk. Experts warn that by 2035, parts of Texas could face rolling blackouts every summer unless drastic changes are made. Water shortages could hit the hill country, and some cities may have to stop new development entirely just to preserve power and water for existing residents. The irony is painful. The state that promised freedom from overregulation now faces the consequences of underregulation, growth without limits, development without sustainability. And yet hope remains, because Texas has always reinvented itself. From the oil boom to the tech revolution, it's a land built on resilience. But that resilience will be tested like never before. The question isn't whether Texas can grow, it's whether Texas can grow smart. Because if it doesn't, the same forces that made it a symbol of prosperity will turn it into a symbol of collapse. The boom was the beginning, the strain is now, and the future, that depends on whether Texas can find balance before the system breaks for good.